The desert wind howled through the skeletal remains of Joshua trees, their twisted branches clawing at the twilight sky. 42-year-old single father Ethan Carter tightened his grip on the steering wheel of his rusted Ford pickup, squinting against the dust storm. His 8-year-old daughter, Lila, dozed in the passenger seat, her backpack clutched to her chest like a shield. They were 30 miles outside Las Cruces, New Mexico, where Ethan worked as a foreman at a shuttered construction site. The job had dried up 6 months ago, but he still drove the perimeter every evening, part habit, part hopeless ritual. That night, the wind carried something else. A sound, faint, garbled. Ethan killed the engine. The silence was immediate, oppressive. Then, help, not the wind. A voice. Underground. He bolted from the truck, boots sinking into the parched earth. Lila stirred but didn't wake. The plea came again. Please. A child's voice, smothered, desperate. Ethan dropped to his knees near a fissure in the ground, where the earth had collapsed into a shallow sinkhole. His stomach lurched. At the bottom, a boy no older than 6 clung to a woman buried up to her chest in dirt. Her arms were pinned, her face streaked with tears and grime. The boy, Jesus, his fingers were bleeding, scrabbled at the soil, trying to dig her out. "Look at me," Ethan barked, already yanking his multi-tool from his belt. The boy flinched but locked onto Ethan's gaze. "Breathe. Slow. In, out." He sawed at the knotted roots entangling the woman's legs, his own nails splitting against rocks. The woman's lips moved soundlessly. A name. Daniel. Her son. Ethan hauled them both onto solid ground. The woman coughed violently, her wrists ringed with raw rope burns. She seized Ethan's sleeve. "Don't call the police. He'll find us." He. Ethan scanned the empty desert. No tire tracks, no witnesses. Just the boy's whimpers and the woman's shattered whisper, "My husband did this." Ethan didn't hesitate. He scooped up Daniel with one arm, draped the woman's trembling frame over his shoulder, and half carried, half dragged them to the truck. Lila woke as the doors slammed, her wide eyes darting from the strangers to her father's dirt-caked hands. "Dad?" "Seatbelts. Now." His voice left no room for questions. The drive home was a blur of rearview mirrors and white-knuckled turns. The woman, Mira, she'd rasped, kept her face pressed to the window, her breath fogging the glass in frantic bursts. Daniel curled into a ball on the seat, his arms wrapped around his knees like he was still holding his mother underground. Ethan's ranch was a relic, a single-story house with a detached tool shed, its corrugated metal walls warped by decades of sun. He parked behind the shed, out of sight from the road. Inside, the air smelled of sawdust and motor oil. He kicked aside a stack of lumber, revealing a cot he'd used during late-night projects. "Lila," he said, tossing her the keys. "Go inside. Lock the doors. If anyone calls, say I'm in the shower." His daughter nodded, her fear sharp but obedient. She'd learned young how to follow orders in silence. Mira collapsed onto the cot, her fingers digging into the canvas. "He'll check hospitals, police. Then we don't go there." Ethan grabbed a first aid kit, pouring antiseptic onto a rag. Daniel flinched as Ethan dabbed at his torn fingertips. "Who's your husband?" Mira's laugh was a broken thing. "Lucas Vega." The name hit Ethan like a punch. Vega. The same last name on the construction company that had fired him, the one owned by the mayor's brother-in-law. The same company that had mysteriously won the bid to develop this stretch of desert. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Lila. "Stranger car on the road. Silver SUV. Didn't stop." He exhaled through his teeth. They were already looking. By dawn, Ethan had pieced together fragments of Mira's story. Lucas Vega wasn't just her husband. He was the money behind half the county's shady land deals. She'd found a ledger, dates, amounts, names hidden in a safe. Enough to bury him, she'd said. The irony wasn't lost on Ethan. Daniel had seen too much. Lucas couldn't risk his son talking. Ethan pried open his floorboards, retrieving a Glock 19 and a burner phone. He dialed the only contact he trusted. Reyes, an ex-army buddy turned PI. "You're dragging me into Vegas's shitstorm?" Reyes hissed. "Just need a paper trail. Property records, bank withdrawals. Meet me at the diner, 10 a.m., and bring cash." Ethan turned to Mira. "Can you draw the safe's location?" She sketched a blueprint of Vega's study on a napkin, her hands steadier now. Daniel slept fitfully beside her, his breath hitching like he was still dreaming of dirt. Lila appeared in the doorway, clutching a plate of peanut butter sandwiches. She set it down without a word, but her gaze lingered on Daniel's bruised wrists. Later, Ethan would find her duct taping a kitchen knife to a ruler just in case. The Bell Ranch Diner was a relic of the 1950s cracked vinyl booths, coffee stains older than Lila, and a cook who doubled as the bouncer. Ethan slid into the back booth, his back to the wall. Reyes was already there, stirring a spoonful of sugar into his black coffee like it was a chemistry experiment. "You look like hell," Reyes said, pushing a manila envelope across the table. Ethan flipped it open. Property records, bank statements, and a photo of Lucas Vega shaking hands with a state senator at a fundraiser. "Your boy Vega's been busy," Reyes muttered. Transferred $2 million to an offshore account the day after his wife vanished. Same day, he filed a life insurance claim. He tapped a highlighted line. "And guess who owns the construction company that just got approved for that big federal land grant?" Ethan's jaw tightened. The desert site where he'd found Mira and Daniel. Reyes leaned in. "There's more. That ledger your girl found? Vega's not just dodging taxes. He's laundering for the Delgado cartel, and they don't like loose ends." A bell jingled as the door opened. Ethan's hand drifted under the table, brushing the Glock. But it was just a trucker in a grease-stained cap, heading for the counter. Reyes dropped his voice. "You need to disappear, man. Vega's got cops in his pocket. Even if you go to the feds, by the time they move..." "I'm not running." Ethan stuffed the envelope into his jacket. "I need proof. Something that can't be buried." Reyes sighed, then slid a key across the table. "Storage Unit 114 at Desert Star." Vega's old foreman stashed copies of the real books there before he fell off a roof. But Ethan, he grabbed his wrist. "This isn't just some pissed-off husband. Vega will kill you, your kid, and everyone you've ever talked to in a Walmart checkout line." Lila was waiting on the porch when Ethan got back, her legs swinging over the edge like she'd been there for hours. She held up her makeshift spear, the knife duct tape monstrosity, with grim pride. "I practiced," she said. "Aimed for the zombie eyes on the hay bale." Ethan ruffled her hair. "Atta girl." Inside the shed, Mira was awake, her fingers wrapped around a steaming mug of tea. Daniel sat cross-legged on the floor, carefully stacking Ethan's spare lumber into a wobbly tower. The normalcy of it all twisted something in Ethan's chest. He showed Mira the storage key. "We need that ledger." She paled. "Lucas will have men watching it. Not if they're watching here instead." Ethan's plan was simple. Bait the hook. He'd call Vega's construction office, posing as a surveyor who'd seen something strange near the sinkhole. Vega's men would swarm the desert, leaving the storage facility unguarded. The switch. While they were distracted, Reyes would grab the ledger, the trap. Ethan would rig the ranch with motion sensors and his own version of home defense gasoline-soaked rags in glass bottles, tripwires hooked to bear spray. Mira gripped his arm. "Daniel stays with me," Ethan nodded. "Lila too." But Lila, eavesdropping in the doorway, crossed her arms. "No way. I'm your lookout." Reyes died in the parking lot of Desert Star Storage with 3 bullets in his chest, and the ledger clutched to his stomach like a child. Ethan saw it all from his truck across the street. The way his friend's body jerked with each shot. The way the blood spread across the manila envelope, turning the numbers inside into illegible smears. The 2 gunmen didn't even check his pulse, just rifled through his pockets, took his wallet, and left him there in a heap of loose gravel and spilled coffee. Ethan's hands shook so hard he couldn't grip the wheel. He should have gone himself. He should have listened. Reyes' last text blinked on his phone, sent 30 seconds before the gunfire. They knew. "Don't come. Burn it all." The ranch was too quiet when Ethan returned. No Lila on the porch, no Daniel banging sticks together in the yard. Just Mira, standing in the doorway of the shed, her face bone white. Ethan, he knew. Before she said it. Before he saw the boot prints in the flower bed. Before he heard the muffled sobs coming from inside the house. They'd taken Lila. A note was duct-taped to the fridge, written in block letters with a Sharpie. "You have 3 hours to bring me my wife, or I bury your daughter deeper than you found mine." Ethan didn't scream, didn't punch the wall. He just stood there, staring at the words until they blurred. And then he turned to Mira with a smile so hollow it made her step back. "Get Daniel," he said. "We're going to a construction site." Vega's newest development was a half-built subdivision on the edge of town rows of skeletal houses, with plastic sheeting flapping in the wind like ghostly skin. Ethan parked a mile away and approached on foot, Mira dragging a wide-eyed Daniel through the scrub brush. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. Ethan checked the Glock's magazine. "Yeah, I do." They found Lila in Lot 17, standing at the edge of a freshly dug foundation pit. A man in a suit, Lucas Vega, held her by the collar, his polished loafers kicking pebbles into the void. 2 armed guards flanked him. "Daddy!" Lila screamed. Vega grinned. "Took you long enough." Ethan stepped into the open, hands raised. Mira and Daniel hung back in the shadows. "Let her go," Ethan said. "You want Mira? Here she is." Vega's grin faltered when he saw his wife. "You look like shit, baby." Mira spat at his feet. Daniel started crying. And then, everything happened at once. Ethan moved first. The Glock barked twice. 1 guard dropped, clutching his throat. The other fired wild, the bullet whining past Ethan's ear. Lila bit Vega's hand hard enough to draw blood, and when he yelped and let go, she ran. Vega roared and lunged for her. Mira got there first. She slammed into him like a freight train, knocking them both into the foundation pit. They landed in a tangle of limbs and curses, Vega's suit tearing on rebar. Ethan shot the second guard in the knee, then jumped into the pit after them. Vega was already on his feet, swinging a rusted pipe. It connected with Ethan's ribs with a crack that sent white-hot pain lancing through his side. He staggered, tasted copper. "You ruined everything!" Vega hissed. Mira grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it in his face. Ethan tackled him. They rolled through the mud and gravel, fists flying. Vega was stronger, but Ethan was angry. He punched until his knuckles split, until Vega's nose was a ruined mess, until the man's screams turned to wet gurgles. Somewhere above them, Lila was sobbing, Mira was shouting. And then Daniel, quiet, timid Daniel, picked up the fallen pipe and brought it down on Vega's skull with a thunk that echoed like a tomb slamming shut. Silence. Vega didn't move. Ethan crawled to Lila and pulled her into his arms. She clung to him, her whole body shaking. "Is he dead?" she whispered. Ethan looked at Mira, at Daniel, at the blood pooling in the dirt. "Yeah," he lied. "He's dead." The cops came. The right cops, the ones Reyes had tipped off before the storage unit. They found the ledger in Vega's office, the offshore accounts, the cartel contacts. They took Ethan's statement and didn't ask too many questions about the body in the foundation pit. "Self-defense," the detective said, snapping his notebook shut. "Case closed." At home, Ethan sat on the porch with Lila curled against his side, watching the sunrise paint the desert gold. Mira and Daniel were inside, making pancakes. The smell of syrup and coffee mixed with the dry earth scent of a storm coming. Lila pressed her ear to his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Yeah." And for the first time in years, Ethan believed it.